You are listening to the Bob and Kevin Show with Bob Baty-Barr
and Kevin Giszewski. Each week we cover relevant tech and social issues related to technology.
Our website is bobandkevin.show,
and our episodes can be found virtually on any podcast network.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Just search for Bob and Kevin Show.
Hey, it's Bob and Kevin plus one. We've got Ben in studio today, and I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Bob from the Bob and Kevin Show, and the two other guys on screen are...
I'm Kevin, the other half of the Bob and Kevin Show, and I've invited Ben, and he can introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Ben.
That was easy.
God. And Ben's going to make us both sound real bad today, I can already tell.
I know, he's totally got, that radio voice.
That voice.
So, Bob, I brought Ben on the show today because he has something that you might be interested in. He has a little thing called Starlink at his house. Something we've talked about a lot.
I actually teased that earlier this week to the fans all across the interwebs. So you're a much anticipated guest, Ben.
Oh, thanks.
So I'll set the stage a little bit for the lay listener here. So Ben and I, we both live kind of rural. Bob is flaunting the fiber optic internet over there at his house. But over here in the real world, in Indiana, we don't have such fancy things yet. So we're, I think, Uncle Elon's prime customer. And I haven't pulled the trigger yet on Starlink, mostly because I'm under a contract with my current provider. And I haven't really reasoned whether or not it's worth having dual internet, which I've totally had before. But also because I want guinea pigs like Ben to struggle a little bit and see if it's worth me doing it.
We're super lucky to have a Ben because I tried to get you to jump into Starlink right away for show content, but as you said, you couldn't pull the trigger. So again, Ben, thanks. Before we dive in, Ben, just tell our thousands and thousands of listeners just a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, let's see here. Well, I'm Ben, for starters. I don't like long walks on the beach, though. I'm not really into that. But the thing is I kind of grew up in the inner city of Fort Wayne. So then kind of moving out here to the sticks kind of put a stop on things that I'm used to being in the city and everything. So marrying a country girl kind of puts the farm boy into you. So I had to learn how to take care of a mini farm too. That was kind of fun.
Nice.
But yeah.
This sounds familiar. I didn't know that about you because hold on. I didn't know this about you because I grew up in Fort Wayne and I married a farm girl in Columbia City. Now I'm trapped. I mean, I live out here.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to talk offline a little bit more about that. So sorry, Bob. Continue.
Sarah, sorry if you're listening because your husband said the word trapped. That's really his bad.
She won't listen. I'm not worried.
I know. Family doesn't listen. Only Josh does because he's paid to. Oh, should we maybe do that before we get too far into things, or?
We should, but I'll totally put it on you this week to pay the bills because I don't have it up in front of me.
That's okay. I knew you would do that, and I do have it up in front of me. So,
nice.
Shout out to the longtime sponsor of the show, Baty-Barr Media. This episode, as well as many of the previous episodes you've listened to, are brought to you by Baty-Barr Media. Baty-Barr Media is an online editing and production company that specializes in music, podcasts, production of video and audio services for creators of all backgrounds. Wow, that was rough. Sorry, Josh. Baty-Barr Media is efficient, reliable, and their services will save you stress on any project. Reason why Bob and Kevin Show uses Baty-Barr Media is because he allows us to just be creators. We show up, we make sure that the picture works for everyone out in the internet streaming world, and then Josh puts the audio files together after the fact, and we don't have to sweat it. We've got a pretty good system worked out for him, and he just allows us to do our thing. So Baty-Barr Media is also encouraging you to do your thing by offering a 10% discount on your first project with Baty-Barr Media. Now, how do you claim that discount? You just go to www.baty-barr.media/BK show, and you can get a 10% discount on your first project. Kevin, got anything you want to add there?
I do. You know why I like Josh and Baty-Barr Media? Because last week we were doing this whole podcast thing and the live stream crashed. And we got our money's worth out of Josh, like we always do. But he had to piece together some audio mischief. So that was worth it, if nothing else.
If he didn't tell me where he patched it, I would have never been able to tell. So good on you, Josh. Thanks. I mean, obviously you're a pro. That's what we expect, but it's still always interesting. Ben, you have any thoughts on Baty-Barr Media? Kidding.
No, he doesn't. No? He doesn't know what Baty-Barr Media is.
That sounds really good.
But our listeners now do. And Ben actually does. Now.
Yes.
No. All right. Awkward segue alert.
Now back to the regular program.
So, yes. Ben, Starlink, what made you get it? We'll just start with that.
Yeah. So being out in the middle of nowhere, I get nothing. I can't, like when they went to switch regular TV over to digital, I actually lost regular TV. So I couldn't even get the digital signals.
Wow.
So, because I used to get Mishawaka stations where I'm at, and then so that Mishawaka's digital didn't go that far, and I could never get the Fort Wayne one. So I pretty much had to go to satellite TV. And so then I'm like, well, I need internet too. So went to satellite internet. So I have everything as satellite where I'm at. I cannot get anything else.
So let's kind of paint the picture of what Starlink is for someone who doesn't know anything about Starlink versus traditional satellite. So, side note, I grew up in Mishawaka before Fort Wayne. It's getting really weird. Secondly, I was in the military, and my job was 25 Sierra, which is SATCOM operator maintainer, and we use geosynchronous satellites. So imagine around the equator, if you could push out the equator to 22,500 miles, as an orbit around the equator, that's where our standard communication satellites live before Starlink. The problem with that is you got a 500 millisecond up and back. So you've got serious latency problems. You're going to get lag frag if you're playing games. It's not so bad on streaming because who cares if you're a half second behind, because that's going to be continual. However, Skype, something like this, we're using Skype, by the way, for those not watching right now and only listening, it's just terrible. And satellite resources are super limited because there's only so much bandwidth on a bird, as we call it. So the main fundamental difference with Starlink versus traditional, because I think we've ever used it's like Dish Networks, satellite internet.
I've used HughesNet and Viasat.
HughesNet, that's the one I was thinking. So those are your traditional satellite providers, and they're not cheap. You don't get much bandwidth. How much bandwidth were you getting on those?
I was paying for, of course, the plan was expired. It was the 100 gig unlimited. The whole.
So throughput, right?
Yeah.
It's the 100 gig.
Yep.
Okay.
And the bandwidth I was supposed to be getting 15 down and 2 up.
And what'd you really get?
I was really getting about 1 to 2 down to half up.
Ouch. Okay.
So that's what you were doing prior to the Starlink? That's what you were living with?
Yeah, and 700 pings per second. Yep. Yeah, the whole 700 pings. So the latency was real bad, and so it was really kind of hard to do much of anything.
So to someone who doesn't know internet, the satellite internet, doesn't realize that this is a new breed of satellite internet, because this is low Earth orbit internet. And think of it as a constellation of cell towers that are in space that are floating. Mm-hmm. That's basically what Starlink is. And so because it's so much closer, it's just above the orbit of the International Space Station, the latency is much, much better. Tell us what you're getting now with Starlink.
So now it depends a little bit because they're doing the beta still, but my pings, my milliseconds are right around 40 instead of 700. And then I will range anywhere steady-wise between 30 down to 120. And then my up usually stays pretty much right around 12. So I'm pretty consistent around a 30 down and a 12 up. But there's a lot of times it's up around 100. It depends on the time of the day.
So with the time of day, would that be dependent upon where the satellites are located, or would that depend upon how many people in your hood are using Starlink?
Well, I think it's more the satellite, because I've been noticing a trend here lately is that around 8 o'clock I lose internet, and then it'll show that there was no satellites, and it reconnects, and then next thing I know, I'm running at 100 down. So
that was part of the deal, right, of signing up for the beta is, hey, you have to be okay with an outage window. So I was getting the impression from you weren't seeing any outages, but you are seeing some of those.
Yes, I am seeing now that I've been doing it more. And what's kind of nice about them is on the app it has itself, you can go to the status page, and it will actually, they don't lie to you. They'll say, hey, it was down for beta, it was down for satellite, or just loss of a signal. So it'll actually show you on a graph of why it went down, not just saying, oh, I don't know why it's down. And they'll even send an email out sometimes.
So we're assuming that outage is because they're still sending satellites up all the time. So we're assuming that that's just a gap in the chain or the web that's basically going to go around the planet, the girdle.
Yeah.
I think so.
It says that it's trying to reconnect, waiting for next satellite is usually what it'll tell me if I look at it.
Do you have any idea, Ben, how much space there is between satellites? Is there like 3 satellites in the sky at once, or is there like only 1 at most?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I know that one of the emails they sent out that usually it'll lock into one satellite and it keeps it on that one, but they're working on patching that to allow it to flip between satellites easily without loss.
Now, you had this at first on the ground, right?
Yes.
You sent me pictures and it was on the ground. And then you moved it to your roof. Did you see substantial benefits from kind of your look angle, if you will? Yeah. So the app is a little difficult on where it shows check for obstructions because the low light that it puts on the app, you can't really like trying to really it's a real dark screen for it, but it's really looking for that field of view, 110 field of view. And it always just a little bit of the house and the woods was causing some problems with that. So once I put it on the roof, it went, so the time I moved it, it was giving me, I was really struggling on it. I was getting about a 20 down at the time and still getting that 10 up. And then when I moved it to the top of the roof, I instantly got 120 down and like that whole 12 up. And I'm like, geez. So, and then my latency was around 60 at the time. And now I'm running right around 40. So it's really, really helped it. I haven't put it to the very top of my roof yet. I'm just kind of waiting and letting it kind of ride on just to the bottom of the roof. So, because there's still, if I look up there, there's still a little bit of obstruction, but I'm waiting for the trees to kind of grow in. So
I think Kevin and I know that you have a little bit of a technical and tech background, but it kind of sounds like Starlink's taken pretty good care of its customers, like the setup. I mean, how did you find the setup?
The setup was a piece of cake. Actually, it comes into the box already plugged in, and it's color-coded, black and white cords. So all you have, other than putting it on the tripod where it clips right on in for you, you just plug it into the power outlet, and then that's it.
Does it have any servos or anything that kind of like adjust it or anything?
Yes. Yeah. So it takes usually about 3 minutes from the first startup of it. Yeah, it'll just sit there, and the next thing you know, it'll just move. The whole dish will just rotate over and then kind of moves around and readjust itself. The really difficult part was going to the app and then remembering I need to go to my Wi-Fi and then go out of my Wi-Fi and go back to the app. Mm-hmm. But they actually kind of tell you that. You just got to remember to read it.
I think that's clunky with most like internet-related services. Like if you add a device, like any kind of like assistant device to your home, or like smart speakers or anything like that, you've got to connect to that network first to get the communication going between it and the phone, and then it bridges that over to the actual your house network. So
Ben, talk to us a little bit about
go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead.
We have latency. None of us are on HughesNet, are we? Anyway, just asking.
Or biased.
And can you describe the sign-up process? What did you do to get on any list? How long did it take you? How much did it cost? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So I heard there was a list, but I went ahead and just went to the SpaceX site, and I went on there and I said, I just want to buy it. I didn't even ask to get on no beta program. And it was like right around $550. And that basically took me, it said it was going to take a little bit longer. It was going to take 8 weeks to get my equipment because it was on back order, but I actually got it in 5 weeks. So, and they sent me the notification, and like 2 days later, it was out my front door. So,
That's awesome.
So is that $550 just for the initial hardware, or I mean, is it a monthly billing? How does that all work?
yep. So it was $550 for the initial hardware. So it's just for the satellite and the router, the modem that comes with it, and then it's only $99 a month for service, which is a huge savings for what I was paying.
So just to give a contrast, we have local line of sight providers because out in the sticks here, we usually have roll the dice if there's a cable line that goes by your house. If not, roll the dice if there's a lane line that can be used as DSL, and then roll the dice that there's a line of sight system. So those are kind of your non-Starlink choices out here. I'm on a line of sight system. In fact, we're live streaming on that line of sight system. And I'm getting about 20 down and 4 up, depending on the time of day. And we're doing all kinds of craziness. We're bouncing our signal to the barn down the road and then turning a right-hand corner so I can see the radio tower, like Scott, my brother-in-law, is doing. So it's cool stuff, but it's just to get internet. And I'm paying, I think, $80 a month. I think I was supposed to charge more be charged more because I signed a contract. I think I got a discount. But what do you think about Starlink long term versus those 3 types of internet that might be available to people out there? At this point, do you recommend people try the beta of Starlink?
Oh, absolutely. I was paying for, of course, I had a 100 gig limit every month. And like I said, it was really getting basically 1 down and half up. And I was paying $167 a month for that.
Whoa. Maybe we should protect that internet service provider so they don't get any sort of malice on their social media. But dang, that's pretty rough. I'm honestly thinking that some of these line of sight providers either better step up quickly, or they're going to watch their business fade away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because obviously Starlink's not going anywhere. I mean, they're putting satellites up in space just for this purpose, right?
Bob, I love it when you give me a perfect segue. Bob, guess how many satellites have been launched for Starlink so far?
Are they getting close to 300?
And if you had another guess, it would be?
I don't know. Help me. Higher or lower?
Higher.
Then I have no guess. You help me out.
Okay. 1,445 have been launched, but there's only 1,378 because they've had to deorbit some of them. And we've talked a little bit about some of the logistics there, about what do you do with satellites that are defunct. And we're tech guys, the 3 of us. When somebody says, hey, their printer's broke, you walk over there, you look at it, and you open it up, you fix the printer, and you walk away. You can't do that with a satellite without some sort of special, I don't know, rocket or something like that. Do you have any reservations or issues about buying into Starlink? Now, you're only $550 plus a monthly fee into it because you're not under a contract, are you?
No, just pay every month because the equipment's now it's mine. So
yep, which is great because when you have to rent that cable modem for $10 a month, in the long run, just buy the damn thing.
Yeah, I just sent mine back today.
There you go.
For the other service.
So, do you have any qualms or reservations about the ability of Starlink to be able to keep their network operational? Is that at all a thing?
I do not. Part of that reason is the very first day I got Starlink, there was a really big storm. I mean, it was a real big storm. And my wife does online teaching and stuff. And so she really needed the internet. And we have a lot of issues a lot of times when storms come through with the satellite. Well, we lost internet, and she's like, I need to get this done. And she goes, what's that Starlink password again? And so I told her, and she said it ran great. I did a speed test, and it was running through a big storm and everything. And I'm like, wow.
So that's interesting because in the military we use, and I'm looking on the Wikipedia, totally Wikipedia true, KU band and KA band, and we used X band. Those 3 bands we use in the military. X band is for military, KU and KA is commercial satellite. DirecTV and stuff like that, I believe they use KU or KA. I'll have to look that up, but they're totally susceptible to rain fade. If it gets super stormy me. And I've been told the reason that is, and it's happened with our military stuff too. Sorry, military secrets. Is if it rained really hard, you could lose connection. So you haven't experienced that yet?
Not with the Starlink. No.
Okay. I don't know if we've had a really
I've had
good
2 big
downpour,
storms.
have we? Okay.
Oh yeah.
You live pretty far from here, don't you? Or...
Yeah, the other side of Whitley County.
Okay.
But now,
big old Whitley County.
is that a function of the rain droplets in the atmosphere, or is that a function of water on your dish?
I think it's the way it was explained to me in the military is the KU wavelength, and Ka is the similar size to a water vapor droplet. So it creates interference is the problem.
Yeah. So they've always told me if I had really thick clouds in the area that I'd have an issue, but
who's they?
That my satellite provider.
Okay. All right.
But not Starlink.
No, I haven't had no, I have not had any outages for that. It's always been a beta or something, but never during a storm yet. I've had 2 big ones.
What's the altitude difference between the Starlink satellites and some of the other satellite internet provider satellites? Are they
22,500 miles is what your HughesNet is going to be at. Starlink, I think 70 miles.
Okay, so they are lower.
Oh, they are. Yeah, and that's what it is. And so if we talk through satellite technology real quick, with 3 satellites at 22,500 miles up, you can cover the entire Earth except for some of the poles. So we didn't pick 22,500 just magically. It's so you can actually cover the Earth in as few as amount of satellites as possible to go all the way around the world, because the satellite can't see the backside, and you actually need 3 of them to go all the way around at that orbit. So when you close in the orbit, you now need more satellites. So that's why we've got these micro satellites, and they're really tiny. They launch them 60 at a time. Yep. And the really cool thing about these is the 3 traditional satellites will too. They can see each other, so signal can come up, I can pass off to you, then you can go back down. So that's how they can do it. But Starlink does the same thing. It sees you on the ground, and then it has neighbor nodes, and then it can just laterally transfer and orbit the signal. So it's not just a matter of it goes up and then it has to have what we call the footprint, the beam footprint, because every satellite has how much. Imagine shining a flashlight back to Earth. What lights up? That's your satellite's look. The lower you orbit you are, the smaller your look is, and vice versa. But that's why we have to have so freaking many little tiny Starlink ones in order to make that constellation work. And I believe they started at the higher latitudes and they're working their way down towards the equator. But I couldn't tell you if they're doing more in the north and less in the south, because most of the population of Earth is in the north. But because of the way orbital dynamics work, I don't know if they can cherry pick north versus south, because they do, laps around the Earth. So I don't know if that answered your question, Bob. That was a lot of nerd stuff right there.
No, I was basically just looking for, some of the reasons why the Starlink might be so much more reliable than the other satellites. And obviously that distance is going to be a definite contributing factor.
So the thing with less satellites too is it means you also have less bandwidth possible, because a satellite works with, a lot of people don't realize digital communications leverage analog communications all the time.
Yeah,
so when you do satellite communications, right. So a cell phone, even though the end result's a digital phone, you're using radio waves, which are analog waves, to talk to a radio tower. They're just fancy radios. And then when we go from analog to digital, digital analog, that's just called modulation. We're using the analog wave as a carrier wave to put data on it. The smaller your carrier wave is, the more data you can put on it. Hence 5G can do a lot more data because it's a lot smaller thing. But your trade-off is going to be interference. I can't go through a wall with the smaller beam, just like bass. You can hear that thumping from the other room. It's a long wavelength. But the guitar, you can't hear it as well. It sounds tinny, right? Same concept.
So, Ben, do you have any concerns that Elon will start to sell off some of that bandwidth that you're using for other larger communication purposes? Because the military has those satellites way up in the sky too. It really would probably be to their advantage to use some of those low Earth bandwidth.
Yeah, I want to. Hopefully, I can keep the bandwidth. Yeah, that'd be nice, especially since I'm streaming TV now, where I couldn't do that before.
Well, that was a
So
question I
yeah,
had
I
too.
would.
So you bailed on, so you don't have traditional TV service, like satellite TV service anymore. It's just through the Starlink.
Right. I used to have Dish, and I got rid of them last week, and so now I've been streaming TV service, and it's been great.
That's
So
impressive.
more government slash legacy satellite stuff. Have you fellas ever used a Iridium phone? It's also the phone that Osama bin Laden would say, hey, he's got a satellite phone, because we call them Iridium phones because there's a constellation of satellites called Iridium, and it's a company. I think they're not profitable, and they're pretty much held up by the government because the government leverages their resources a lot. So if you ever see somebody with a satellite phone, they're using it. And if you've ever seen a satellite phone, it's got the antenna that's huge, and it's a phone that looks like the very first generation cell phone. It's just like this,
Like,
you
like
know,
the A-Team.
exactly. It's just like what it looks like a walkie-talkie. It's just terribly large. So that's the kind of technology that Starlink can probably put out of business, and the military can use commercial and government satellites because we have encryption that's totally safe to do. So they encrypt the signal up, they decrypt it on the way down, and that's totally fair. And it's much harder to jam a bunch of satellites versus one or two satellites. So there's actually an advantage to do that, because to jam a satellite signal, all you have to do is send a radio signal louder than everybody else's, and you basically just make it too noisy on the satellite. So I definitely think the bandwidth could be used by non-traditional sources. I've got like 3 thoughts here. I'll rapid fire them and I'll shut up. But the NRECA, which is the National Rural Co-op Association, recently filed a complaint with the government because they gave Elon money and Starlink a bunch of money for satellite internet. It's like a grant. Normally, this co-op is basically helping rural communities with their broadband. They didn't like Elon getting this because Starlink's available not only in rural areas, but where? Urban too. Can't exactly discriminate there. But the good news is if you're in an urban area like Bob, you're going to have fiber. You'll be like, I don't want the Starlink anyway. It's just not as performant. But they get grant money for that. So I think there's probably some rules on who can use it. So it's very possible that, hey, no, sorry, you've got these options. We can't sign you up. That might be coming one day. And then the other thing is Starlink is a giant cable modem. So if there's a bunch of people in your neighborhood, you may be like, hey, it's great now, but if 50 of my neighbors sign up for it, is it still great? TBD, right?
I just saw one of my neighbors putting one in his yard, so
You can go sabotage and be like, cut the cables at night. Don't do that.
So, all right, that was going to be one of my other questions, though. So it is catching on in your area then, huh?
I've seen a few people mention it, and my brother-in-law's ordered it, and I know at least one other person's ordered it. Now I feel like I'm like not a cool kid now because I could have ordered it, but I didn't.
You are a late adopter now. So here's a personally driven question. The dish itself and the setup, I'm a camper, and we've been exploring how we could stay connected to the grid while being mobile. Do you see this as something that could be a mobile solution or no?
not currently, because it said it was limited to my address. So I had to type in the correct address that my satellite would be at. So I don't know if they're locking that satellite into that area or what, but
maybe,
it was
maybe it has
specific.
a GPS on it and it says,
Right.
look, you're trying to run this from Canada, where it says you sign up from Florida.
Yeah, they said you got to be careful. You put in the correct address that you want this to be ran from.
Interesting.
So.
Another question. It seems that their customer communications are fairly transparent and frequent. Have they given you any kind of indication of where the project goes from here and what to expect as your neighbors get more, as more neighbors sign up, or are they pretty quiet about that?
I don't know. I haven't really heard much about that. The one thing is it's really difficult to. Not that I've had too many issues. I only had just the one, and I had their tech support that you can email on. So I emailed them, but it took them like 3 days to get back with me. And then they sent me an email, and then 2 hours later, they sent another email saying customer is unresponsive, so we closed the ticket out. I'm like, you gave me 2 hours on an email to respond.
That sounds about right.
But I mean, yeah, but I didn't have the issue anymore. It was the speed thing that was going on. It actually dropped down to like a 10 down and a 2 up. So and that was going for like 2 days, but then it went away right after that. And then they sent an email out later on saying they fixed some kind of patch that they had to put in our system. So
I'm just happy they didn't say, "Have you tried turning it off and on?" as their first line of troubleshooting. Can you do a little more of a virtual unboxing for us? How big's the box? What comes in it? How big's the dish? There's a modem, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the box was about 6 inches thick, and I'd say about large size suitcase, basically. This is what it seemed like. So basically, open it up, and they've got picture pages right on the top of the box. So pretty much, if you can follow the pictures, they don't really have many words. It's really just pictures.
So this is made by IKEA.
Might be.
Okay, just look.
So pretty much just took it out of the box, clipped it right into the stand. It clips right on in. Set it out, plug the power in, and the little modem is kind of cool. It's really small. It's about as big as a small notepad, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
Like an iPad type deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just looks like a triangle too. So it almost looks like a little triangle piece.
They had to be different.
Yeah. There's no fan in it or nothing. The only drawback to that modem itself is that you log into it and that's it. So it's like you can set your username and password, obviously, but there's no control for you. It's on. So you don't get the pick, can I stream at 2.4 bandwidth or a 5, hertz? It's just picks it.
Is it a Wi-Fi as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's almost like a unnecessarily locked down cheap router, right?
Right. But it also has an out on it, so you can plug in your own router if you'd like.
Okay.
So I have it going to my switchboard, so I can.
I did read somewhere where you had to use the modem. Is that still a true statement?
I think you have to come in because you got to have something because something has to
like
communicate to the Starlink itself, because that's what communicates to the satellite to tell it to readjust.
Okay.
So
there's some special firmware on there and all that fun stuff.
It just sounds like some pretty nice tech, though. When you think about it, something's controlling the dish in addition to receiving, so it's finding satellites, it's knowing where you're located, so you can't just move it around, which kind of sucks. But so some sophisticated stuff going on there.
Hey, we'll hack it, we'll spoof it, we'll tell it we're really coming from Boulder, but you're in Moab or wherever you go.
Elon, you got to figure that out. I think you got a great market there for campers.
Well, here, let's take it dark. We haven't gone dark yet in this episode. So I'm looking at the list of countries that this is available in: United States, Canada, UK, Germany, Poland, New Zealand, and Australia. So I'm just thinking of the map. Those aren't contiguous countries and whatnot. So they've clearly got this locked down by geography. So imagine China. If you had Starlink in China, where we have the Great Firewall, that seems like a threat. Chinese government would be like, WTF, you ain't having that here. Imagine if you're the Taliban and now you got some awesome internet from your cave. You're streaming Netflix from your cave now. You're uploading terrorist videos like you've never uploaded them before. This is getting really weird. Sorry, I apologize. It's very possible, that they've got some technology or when we say technology, they've got some if-then-else statements that say, sorry, turned on for you, not for you. One day, someone's going to have some hacked firmware, right? And be able to, you can do whatever you want, wherever you want. So,
but
how do you shut
location
that down?
Isn't location spoofing a little harder than some of the other spoofing that happens? I mean, if it is using GPS is GPS. There's no getting around that.
Well, I'm presuming all it is just like everything else we do on a daily basis, Bob. Data in, data out. And if I just say my data is this, who are you to say where I got it from? And So, and with custom firmware, maybe this is, just restricted on the device itself. And now, because, I think it's called Tomato, and there's all these different router firmware you can reflash some cheap links with. So one day, I think it's inevitable somebody will hack this, right?
Well, what if you threw like an unlocator in between the dish and the router, right? Like, I mean, just a very simple piece of middleware there that it's basically, I guess you could spoof your location. But that's not GPS.
A GPS coordinate. Well, a GPS coordinate is a digital number, right? And at some point, the ground station, so let's call it a ground station, that either has a it's talking to the GPS satellites, but if, I used to work at a video game store. We used to modify PlayStations to play emulated games all day long. And you just solder a wire here and here, and now it bypasses that circuit, uses my circuit, and then I can say I'm in Disneyland for all you care.
Right, but that hard-coded circuit is basically just a broad geolocation. That's a hard-coded geo that basically says you're in the U.S. probably.
Maybe. Yeah, who knows what that looks like? Yeah.
But I'm assuming when Ben was describing the intake process where they're like, be certain that you get your address correct, I'm sure that there's a GPS component that looks up that address that you put in versus where the router is located. And if it's within a certain, radius, then they're like, all right, it's cool. But if you bust outside that radius, then you got a problem.
Yeah, so just like any Generation 1 technology, they forget something or whatnot. And I just think one day, we'll be talking how, hey, remember when Starlink was cool? Now that's like the terrorist network where, they can just do whatever because you use this hack thing. I get it. I'm peeing in everyone's Cheerios again. I get it. But I want Starlink. I'm just saying, what's the Black Mirror episode of Starlink one day? So that's one of them. The other one is we have India and China, I believe, are looking to launch a competitor to Starlink, and it's just going to just create this like huge traffic jam in space.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you're like, oops, we China knocked down a bunch of these Starlink ones. Where do you go to file your complaint? You just like shrug your shoulders and go, oh, sorry about that, my bad.
Yeah, and
so
just think.
Let's go. We can stay dark. Is this going to start the Star Wars thing again?
Yeah. Now we're going to put guns on them, lasers, and then we're going to shoot down everyone else's because we found out China's using all their military stuff on there, and we don't want that or whatever.
Right, and phase 1 of that will be like, no. These are like safety lasers to prevent a collision in space, and then instead people are just pointing them and poo poo.
Yep, and then like somebody puts a railgun up there because like Star Wars lasers are like totally fictional. You like a lightsaber, you can't have a beam of light stop at like exactly 3 feet away from where it started. That's just not how it works. You can't have a laser turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off, and go pew 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 pew. It's just not how lasers work. It's either on or it's off.
It uses the Force, Kevin.
Fair enough. But a railgun is a kinetic energy weapon, and you can use gravity to just, as it's coming back to orbit, it will accelerate even further. Like all the modern Navy ships are starting to get railguns.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a next iteration. Not only could you shoot down other satellites, you could actually do like a Star Destroyer in Star Wars and shoot the ground from space, but not with lasers, with railguns. And we really need to get in on this Black Mirror stuff. We had a whole episode, Ben, 1 or 2 now, where we made up fictional. But you ever seen Black Mirror?
Uh-uh.
It's on Netflix.
Oh, must watch.
I could probably stream it now.
Yes, you've been deprived. So it's basically like, what if for tech and it goes wrong? Bob's favorite one, I think, it's called Nosedive. I think I'm remembering.
Yes.
It's a social rating system. So after this podcast, you would give us a rating. You would give us as individuals, instead of like an Uber, you're like, yeah, that was a 5 or a 4 drive. After every social interaction, you would give us a rating, and then we use that for getting invited to things. Your credit score is affected by that. Anyway, it's a really great episode. Something you should check out.
Really great, but it'll also make you cry. So
yes. So a common theme of our podcast is we we tend to think of that's great, but we take it like into the extreme. So yeah, rail guns on Starlink satellites at some point in the future. I'm guessing 10 years max.
But they're so tiny, though. How powerful would the railgun be on that tiny little satellite?
I don't know. You're right.
One-time use.
You've sold me, Bob. Let's just send up a purpose-built railgun satellite. Then we won't have to deal with it. And it happens to have a communication, cone on it, so we can be like, oh, look, we're just, yeah.
It's coming. I'm sure that's part of what Star Wars was all about.
Star Wars was originally called SDI, right? Strategic Defense Initiative, I do believe, and it was during Reagan, right? You're both older than me, so.
Mm-hmm.
So, see what I did there? Yeah, that never happened. But I think it was one of those things that we couldn't even do it if we wanted to. It was more this like, oh, we'll do this if you move missiles into Eastern Europe, and we're like, we'll show you. But it was a total bluff. But I think we're now in the era where we could totally do it now. And it would totally be Elon Musk. Elon Musk is like, somebody described him on the radio the other day. He's part Bond villain, part genius. It's just like, are we supposed to like this guy? I mean, he's kind of cool, but kind of, I don't know, and anyway.
He's hard not to like, but also easy to hate all at the same time. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. Tony Stark. So, Bob, you're still doing the Avengers and Marvel stuff, right?
We're on the second time through at this point, so yeah.
Oh, nice. I still have to do Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Do you have Disney Plus, right? Have you started watching that yet?
We did. We were 2 episodes.
No spoilers.
Behind. No, we're just 2 episodes behind.
Jackson's keeps telling me to watch it. I haven't watched it yet. Anyway, Tony Stark is totally Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
In the real world, I think right now. So,
I call that series Bucky and the Bird, by the way.
Yeah, it didn't look appealing, but he keeps telling me to watch it. So, you said you've seen a few episodes?
Yeah, I think it's very. I'm gonna assume I haven't gotten far enough into it yet, but it feels like it could be very WandaVision-esque, where like you have to hang in there for a few episodes to get to the grab part. I don't know. Ben,
so
I know you're a big listener of the show.
Fake news.
Kevin and I a couple episodes ago talked about NFTs. Are you familiar with the concept of the NFT?
Non-fungible token.
Mm-mm.
And artists are using them.
Continue,
They're selling digital art online as NFTs. And one of my favorite personalities in the world, Sophia the robot, sold one for like almost $700,000, which is ridiculous. And that was kind of the focus of the show. But just an update for listeners that caught that episode. Kevin and I predicted that NFTs were not going to go anyplace anytime soon, and it appears that the market is already bottoming out on them.
I did see a sub-headline somewhere that Tom Brady the football player, is starting an NFT company.
Yep.
I did not click on it. Did you click on that, Bob?
I did not, because I just said idiot and then scrolled on.
He's got money to burn. I don't. Whatever.
But I think that's a big part of it that we brought up in the episode, is that it seems like it's one of those outlets for people who just don't know what to do with their cash. And unfortunately, kids are getting sucked into it. And so they're trying to it's almost like this MLM thing where they're making and selling these digital pieces of art amongst their peer group in the hopes that they'll drive the prices up, but there's just not enough demand or volume, and they're getting crushed. So anyway, just wanted to update everyone that they're failing faster than we even predicted. All
right, so if I could pull it back to Starlink. So one thing I hadn't realized till recently is, think about all the places that don't have internet. Indiana being number 1. Number 2 being oceans and whatnot. So imagine the things this will open up for like rescues and things like that, because eventually maybe you have a Starlink ground terminal light that all it does is it can connect, but all it does is send out an emergency beacon or something like that. Think of the Malaysian airplane that we somehow lost and we still don't know where it's at in the Indian Ocean, maybe we would have, I don't know, a ping back. Just be like, hey, we've got this global internet thing. The government's giving grants for it. So Elon, can you, I don't know, can we make it mandatory that for safety and, whatever reasons, we can connect? Because I hate to tell you, out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, you don't have that big of a density of a user base. So why not, you know? So
it seems like they could remedy that pretty simply with just a kind of like a beacon architecture that, pieces of equipment like airplanes or ships just have a simple beacon that pings the ring.
Yep.
I mean, it'd be really lightweight.
I know they do something somehow, now, but it seems like this will open up that sort of thing. And can you think of any other, I guess, uses of this network that, that this enables? Maritime is obviously one of them. Aviation's the next one. Internet in Indiana is the third. And I'm not bitter. No. Anything else you can think of that we could do it? Because I don't think the poles are covered. So people in Antarctica, sorry, you're still out of luck. Santa, not going to work out well for you. But, there should be like some good uses elsewhere, right?
I think every place outside the poles, it could just radically, rethink everything about global positioning, really, if they leverage it well.
Well, you just gave me that thought. So the GPS system is run by the Air Force, and it's a bunch of little satellites, but it's something that they have to maintain. And last time I checked, it's kind of a fragile network of satellites. It's not the most robust network.
Well,
I wonder if something
old,
like
right?
this could simply replace it. Yes, but think of I don't even know if it's possible. Maybe you need the GPS system for Starlink to exist, because imagine you're a satellite going around the Earth. How do you know where you are in space in relation to anything? You have to have something you have to have a frame of reference. I'm sure Elon's figured this out in his sleep or at breakfast one day, but I'm trying to understand, if you didn't have GPS, could Starlink even be possible? Because you just wouldn't know where you were in the universe.
See, I gotta think that he rewrote that, like that his satellites are not utilizing the GPS network because we've identified it's super old, it's super fragile. I bet you he's got something new going on for them.
Magic. Got it. You heard it here from Bob and Kevin.
I'd almost agree with that a little bit, because I use the Live 360 app a lot of times, and it'll show us exactly where we're at in the house. And I'm like, before it would just be like, why am I in the field? Why are you over here? And now it's like pinging me right where I'm at, and it's pinging my wife where she's at in the house. I'm like, wow, it's really got us pinged right pretty good now.
So I know the cell networks do their own GPS outside of the satellites, because the coffee shop in town, Google started track, because I'd spent so much time one summer there. It said, that's your home. So I would be in the coffee shop, and it would say, you've got 10 minutes to home, and it would put the coffee shop as my home. Like, A, that's creepy, and B, obviously it's wrong, but that's creepy, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel you there.
When are you going to get rid of that tracking device in your pocket? Google's
so
way worse
Bob's
than
referring
Apple.
to my Android here that's going on 5-6 years old now, totally paid off, but I'm totally eyeballing the new iPhone 12. My wife has one, because it is the first Apple phone that does 5G. The problem is do you think we have 5G here in Indiana, Bob? At least where I live? Hell no, we don't. It's just like a tease. So I'm like, should I keep waiting? Because then I get iPhone 13, hoping that 5G finally comes out here. Of course, I literally looked last night at the 5G coverage map, and here, allow me to get on this soapbox. Like we've got like 6 definitions of what 5G is. If you ask AT&T, it's this. If you ask T-Mobile, it's that. Verizon's like this. And then I went to the Verizon website, because I have Verizon, and they said, well, here's our 4G/5G coverage. They put it together because they know if they took off the 4G, it would be like an empty map, except for like Indianapolis and Chicago. And then they have this like subservice of 5G called ultra wideband. And if you can actually filter the map to show that, it's like 100 feet of coverage. It's like this really tiny thing. So I almost have zero hope of 5G coming anytime soon because, and this relates back to Starlink, I was hoping that either 5G or Starlink would come at some point. Starlink finally is manifesting, but 5G, I just think that's just like vaporware still. I mean, what about out in Boulder and Denver? Do you guys even have 5G yet? You probably do because you're Boulder and Denver, but
Caroline just got the 12 mini, and she has 5G, and it shows that she's getting 5G. However, I've noticed that her coverage seems to be pretty spotty. So,
has she done a speed test from a 5G
we
signal?
have not. I actually should do that. I can't believe I haven't, but we've just been. It's her phone. First of all, it's so small that I don't even think of it as a 12, because the mini is basically the same size as the 6, maybe the 5S even. So it's pretty tiny, and I keep forgetting that she's got a brand new phone. So
Sarah's phone, it'll say 5G every now and then. We did a speed test, and it was like 1.2 megabits down. It was just like, I think I get better on 4G on my phone, So,
Right.
I don't trust any of this 5G marketing whatsoever right now. Anyway, so to answer your question, yes, I will eventually get an iPhone, but I'm totally just like dragging my feet.
So let me ask you, do you feel like the iPhone is more secure phone or something?
That is true. Yes.
Interesting.
yes.
Uh-oh. No, you can't just leave it there. Explain.
It really doesn't
What do you
matter
have?
what
What do you
phone you have. I have the Samsung S9.
Okay. I've got a
But-
Galaxy Note 5, which is old.
Yeah.
But
So, I mean, I had a guy that we just had this week, we had his Apple phone on, and we were sitting there chit-chatting. I was talking about Grip 6 wallet I wanted to get, but it was on back order. And then he picks up his phone, and he starts scrolling on there, and it had Grip 6 commercial on there. And he's like, I've never even went to a Grip 6 website. I go, because your phone's listening to you.
so we've
Well,
always
apparently
wanted to.
Ben
Bob
does
and
listen to the show.
Bob and I have always wanted to we need like a shtick. We need something. So tinfoil hat, guys. If we're gonna give away show swag, we're gonna give like branded aluminum foil out because we're totally these guys. They're like, oh yeah, Alexa's totally listening right now. And even though I got her muted, don't trust it.
Oh yeah,
I'm that guy. So that's funny. So do you think the Android's any better or?
No, it listens.
Okay.
It listens. I just like it because it has more of an open access, so I can actually do some stuff.
Yes.
It's
amen.
It goes to this whole smart dumb technology. Like a little off subject, I just bought a printer, and but it's Wi-Fi only. So I needed to get connected, but it says you need to use your mobile app. So I'm like, all right. So I get on my mobile app, and it says I can't connect to your printer. Connect it to the Wi-Fi first. Well, how am I connecting to the Wi-Fi if I can't? If I have to use my mobile app? So I'm like, what? This is stupid. So then I had the computer. My wife needed her laptop going to it. It said, cannot see printer. Put in verification code. Next thing you know, the printer's printing, and it prints out a verification code because
Apparently
the computer told it
connected.
to send it. I'm like, well, how could you not see it, but you told it to send a code to it? I'm confused.
So, not that I'm here to hate on Apple, because I've had many episodes where I've done that. But Apple, for me, I feel like it caters to the lowest common denominator of experience, and that's why I kind of like Android still, because I feel like I'm not locked down. Where I feel like iPhone's like, yeah, we could make it easy for you, but we're not. We're just gonna offer this one button, then tell you it's easier, but it's not easier. But we're gonna tell you it's easier. That's just my humble opinion. I will get in that Apple.
I just remember that exercise when you put that firewall app on your phone and all the stuff that was just bleeding out of there constantly. So
that is my main. So Ben, to give you an idea, so I can't uninstall Facebook from there because it's built into the firmware.
Nice.
Only thing I can do is disable this. So it's like 300 meg of internal storage I can never recover. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is I'm like, gee, how does me shopping here manifest on shopping on my home computer? Well, it's because everything here is like leaking out the back door. Have you ever noticed that we went from like every app has like an ad banner system to they don't have those anymore, but it's still free? How does that? How's it funded? Well, I put on a firewall thing here, and it just showed what are you talking to all over the network, and they're all talking to Facebook, so they're all selling me out to Facebook in the back end. And this is cue Apple was iOS 14. It really pissed off Zuckerberg because now the jig is up on Apple, and you have to opt into each of those requests. And of course, Zuck's like, well, you're going to ruin the internet and blah, 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 whatever. But I'm looking forward to that kind of crap because my tinfoil hat's getting a little worn out. And I need to do something with that because this phone I don't trust.
Yeah, my wife's got the new Apple, the 12 Pro. But
how's the camera on that? Side note.
Oh, on the Pro?
No,
this was actually pretty good.
Okay.
So this was really good, and now, of course, the Pro is a lot better than this one.
Because the iPhone cameras are so good. And that's almost like worth it right there. I don't care what else it does. It takes great pictures. Done.
Yeah, I will say that she's got, and since we're getting ready to go to Hawaii, she wanted to make sure she had a good camera for that. So we got the Pro.
Well done.
That's why Caroline upgraded. All about the camera.
Yeah, we do our Etsy stuff. I do like all the work, and Sarah takes the pictures. That's her job. And of course, there's a backlog of pictures somehow. But since her phone is so much better than mine, I have to wait on her in order to list some of the new stuff. Anyway,
so that is the one drawback. Like the Apple does that live stream photos and stuff. Mm-hmm. So then I have to keep paying for more cloud service for my wife because she takes pictures and it's constantly full of the live photos. So it takes a lot of space.
So that's kind of a racket, right? iCloud, you've got Amazon, cloud storage, you've got, Dropbox, Bob used, you got OneDrive.
Mm-hmm.
All those people are like, yeah, come to us, put all your stuff here. Then if you ever realize, I want to move to a different service, you're really going to move 2 terabytes of stuff? Nah, you'll just pay the extra $5 that they want now out of you per month.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a racket.
Ben, do you all use any of the other Apple services like Apple Music or Apple Fitness Plus or News Plus or any of those?
She uses some different apps that she just downloads for the fitness and stuff like that. We don't really use much of that because we choose like the Spotify and stuff.
They've got a pretty good bundle rate for some of their premium services, and the storage space is included in that. Like it's 2 terabytes. So I think for a bunch of their services, and you can share them with the family. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's kind of why I went away from Apple because of the whole sharing. So I used to have an Apple phone too, but my Apple phone kept getting backed up to whatever my wife's profile was.
Oh,
and I really didn't want all her contacts and all of her information. I kind of wanted mine. So I just said, forget it. You can be Apple and I'll just go to something else. So I just went to Android.
Well,
I think
Apple
they've
does
gotten better
love
at
to share.
them.
They do love to share. Apple, we got to give them credit. I mean, if you're in China, they share the private keys with all of their users with the government because that's the law. So, it's not, they like to share. Tinfoil hat guy. Sorry.
They've got better separation now, though, in the family plans.
Well, that's good. I'll still stick away from Apple.
All right, Bob. Is there anything you're dying to ask Ben about Starlink, the life, the universe, and everything else? Any of that stuff?
No, but I mean, it was great. Thanks, Ben, for coming on, and you did help us out a lot. I mean, it's great getting that firsthand, from signing up to opening the box and getting it running. I'm glad it's working out for you, and I'm excited that Kevin might get some actual bandwidth sometime soon. So
it's not terrible. I'm under contract.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime. And for everybody listening at home, this is going to be a podcast here in the next few days. Thanks to Josh and Baty-Barr Media one more time. And Kev, you got anything to wrap up with?
It was fun to talk nerdy with you fellas.
Yeah.
That's it.
Very good time. Let's do it again. For sure.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening. Find us on all the podcast networks. Replay streams, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you're still here, you're amazing. Thank you. Till next time.
Bye.
You are listening to the Bob and Kevin Show with Bob Baty-Barr and Kevin Giszewski. Each week we cover relevant tech and social issues related to technology.
Our website is bobandkevin.show,
and our episodes can be found virtually on any podcast network.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Just search for Bob and Kevin Show.